Welcome back to Martins and More. My name is Maury Rutch.
And I'm Spoon Phillips.
And this episode is brought to you by our Patreon members. Join our growing community for early access to every episode, exclusive video versions of the podcast, behind-the-scenes footage, full-length product demos, and more. We appreciate you. Hey, Spoon, what's going on today?
Well, here we are on another nice late summer day, but I'd much rather have spent it indoors with you.
You feeling okay?
Yeah, no, it's been, I'm looking forward to this. You know, I've been traveling, I've been busy. I had to miss your talk with Trance Audio.
Oh, that was a fun one. I wish you were there.
Yeah, I totally wish I was there. But yeah, it's great to be back to be talking about one of the very cool, interesting guitars available from Martin. That's a recent limited special edition. So it's good to be back talking Martin guitars.
Are you going to tell him or should I?
I think you should do the honors.
Today's episode is all about the Martin OM-45 John Mayer 20th anniversary. How cool is that?
That's pretty amazingly cool. I will have to say, though, it's not all about that because we'll mention at least some of the other cool John Mayer models that led up to this eventually. But yeah, it's a very cool guitar. I did not get to see this one. I got to see one of the early ones of the, not the 45 one, but the less expensive Mayer 20th anniversary. Still another very cool guitar. I think a lot of people know that various artists do take these artist models very seriously and are very interested in the process and put in their own input and stuff. But few of them have been as collaborative as John Mayer. And that was certainly the case with these 20th anniversary models.
Absolutely. So much so that this guitar almost came out a little bit earlier than it did. And at the last second, I guess you would almost technically say it was at the 11th hour. This guitar was going to production, or at least going to, going to production and going to marketing. And they slammed on the brakes and they had to change a couple of very small features. I'm not sure how much I know about all the background details. I'm not sure how much Spoon is allowed to say of all the intricacies behind the scenes he's allowed to say on the camera. But there were some things that were just changed at the last moment, and it did mean for a delivery that came in late. I remember clearly seeing some intra-dealer emails going forth saying, here's the John Mayer stuff, and then an email right after that, no, stop, that's not happening, delete that if you downloaded it, stop looking at it if you started, that's not accurate, pretend it never happened, and it was one of the last things I actually got from Martin to dealer, but it was... there's a lot we can't say, but it was very, very striking, and it goes to Spoon's point,
Yeah, I think you're kind of dramatizing it and making it sound like a bigger deal. Maybe it was a surprise, but a bigger deal. And even there's certain people at Martin that were very like, well, we don't want it to seem like we have a bad relationship with John Mayer. We don't want to seem like he's a prima donna or whatever. It was nothing along those lines. I think they're getting a little sensitive in this day and age. I think people are in general with this kind of stuff. I can remember back when Stephen Stills, with his D45 Stephen Stills model, he also, he made changes. Yeah, after he got the prototype and said this could be a little bit this. He thought the binding could be not go quite as deep, or I forget what it was. There were things that he thought. That they would really change it to make it more like his actual pre-board D45 and that kind of stuff. There've been many artists who were given the opportunity to say, I think I like this better, and whatever this was, it was small and it was cosmetic and it had certainly had nothing to do with the musical instrument so much as some of the little tweaks they did at the very end to really get it, exactly the way that they wanted it and that the artist wanted it. But he's a very, very personable guy when it comes to that sort of thing, and actually is tickled to death to work with Fred Green and with Dick Boak before him and some of the other people, at Martin that help put together these artist editions. And I think this one's certainly a very special one and an unusual one.
So I'd like to lead off this conversation with what maybe many people will ask if we give them the opportunity. Let us know in the chat if I read your mind correctly, because I want to ask Spoon, are you surprised at the choice of color?
Well, if you're talking about the top, I'm assuming the soundboard, I think we all were when we first heard about it and first came out. And this very much was artist concept, and Martin realizing that artist concept. It is, it looks at first glance like like a black and white top, like a grayscale top, and it's actually inspired by platinum, and as I understand it, in the way that platinum, obviously they're not going to take a actual platinum or any kind of metal and make a soundboard out of it, but it has a kind of a platinum coloring to it. What do they actually call it? I forget what they call it. Hold on a second. I used to know this.
I think charcoal.
Yeah, well, no, that's the toner they put on the back and sides. It's platinum gray burst. That's what they call it. Platinum gray is the name of the color, and certainly most unusual, and certainly looks good on stage when he's played these guitars on stage and under stage light. So platinum gray burst, not for everyone. But then, when has Martin ever put out a guitar that there weren't people saying, that's not for me? So, and usually they're the ones that are not in the market to buy something like an OM-45 anyway. But there are a variety of reasons I would love to have this guitar, but they tend to have more to do with the structural aspect of it. I've never owned a 45 of any kind, and if money was no object, this might certainly be one of the ones I would be interested in owning. But what were your take on the platinum gray burst on this very nice top-level Engelmann spruce top?
Well, I was a little bit surprised, and I think it was either you or me or both of us. We did an earlier podcast episode when we first found out about this instrument, long before Maury's Music took delivery of our first and last one. I wasn't totally sure the picture wasn't black and white. And you make a good point. Like when you really see things like this in person, the dark black and white, or not dark black and white, but the platinum burst against real life abalone or abalone, the very colorful shell inlay, it pops in a much different way from a standard looking top, and even different from one of our favorite combinations, like a dark 1935 burst against pearl can look really striking. This was actually one of those things that I saw 4 or 5 pictures pretty quickly, a couple that were public and then a few that were, behind the scenes at Martin. And I wasn't entirely sure if my phone or computer screen was calibrated to make me know exactly what I'm looking at. And my interest went right to, when I see this in person in most traditional lighting, is it going to look that flat, or is it going to have some kind of a hue? And finally getting an opportunity to see this in person in September of 2024, it really, opened my eyes, and I liked it a lot more than what it looked like in pictures. I won't go on record to say that it's a color that I would actually purchase, but I went from being confused to being open-minded to it, and I sort of stopped there. I don't know that I can really tell you, if the custom shop gave me the opportunity, what color do you want? Would I pick that? I wouldn't, but it's really interesting in real life, and it took me about 20 extra minutes compared to other guitars when I photographed that for this podcast, for our website, and of course for our customer. I was extremely careful, the photos and the videos, to get the color accuracy correct, because even in most cases, even as you're watching this might not be exactly middle gray. Our website and our podcasts, all the videos might be, they sort of could lean a little bit towards the warm skin tones that aren't completely natural. When I shot that first video that you guys will see later for this guitar, the top looked all wrong. And I had to take the picture, look at the guitar, look at the monitor, look at the screen, and I had to triple check everything, because it's not hard to make this guitar look blue, and it's not hard to make this guitar look green, and it falls somewhere in between.
Well, that's funny. You should bring that up. Well, first of all, it shows, just how much effort you put into the videos that you make, and stuff like color correction, and whether it's to be flattering to my skin tone or whether you're trying to get something accurate when it comes to a guitar. But that's the other thing too. When you've seen footage or pictures of him playing these guitars with the platinum gray top under stage light, it has some really cool effects depending on the color of the light. But also what you're mentioning too, this entire motif on the front of the guitar has this sort of old black and white movie feel to it, even if that's not what they were originally going for. And but the color of the abalone, exactly what you were pointing out, the color of the abalone on the fretboard, on the fingerboard, the color of the abalone in the headstock, style 45 headstock, the color of the abalone around the top, the sound hole, and around the fret insula, as I call that area, the extension of the fretboard over the soundboard. It accentuates that in a most unusual way, and that's all very cool. But yes, it looks different, and that's a problem with the internet too. I use a inexpensive 50-inch modern 4K TV thing as my computer monitor. It's never been color corrected. So the John Mayer, these platinum gray tops look bluish compared to the one that I actually saw at the factory that didn't have the pearl. But it's, that looked, as I said, much more, as they call it, platinum gray. So it's, it really depends on the internet or what kind of phone you're using, what monitor you're using, what your video card is. All that stuff can change, slightly change colors. So until you see something in person, you can't really know for certain. But it is certainly unusual, but it works well. I think people may remember his original signature model, the OM-45JM. That was inspired by his well-played and long-loved OM-28V, but he wasn't a big fan of the V necks or the 1 3/4 inch width nuts. So his signature model, even though it was an OM, they gave it a 1 11/16 inch nut with a nut and a low profile to the neck, which, by the way, happens to be some of my favorite specs and the specs that I use now on all my guitars, and works for my hand. And it's one of the reasons I have a huge interest in this guitar. If any major windfalls come up, to finally be able to have an OM-45 with the neck that I love and that John Mayer loves as well. Do you remember the aluminum trim on that original Mayer model?
I do. It was really one of the charming things about that model that made everybody want to recreate the guitar. And I can't tell you how many people came to Maury's Music and said, I want to remake that whole thing. And I said, well, we can do that. And they said, but no, I can't get the signature. I said, of course, you got to skip that. Can I get the inlay? Can I get the aluminum? I said, no, you really can't. It was really proprietary to that instrument. And we ended up making quite a few different versions of really recreating the OM-28JM here at the store, but none of them had that aluminum at all. And that was one of the, you could say it now, especially in hindsight, I think it was one of the coolest things about that model. And not a motif that followed everything he did, but when you looked at an OM-28 from a distance, somebody playing the guitar, and you weren't careful enough to see the soundboard signature on the fretboard, you definitely noticed the aluminum outlining the bridge and the headstock, and that I didn't see very many of them in the wild, but I really remember liking the styling a lot.
Yeah, and very thin piece of very thin line of aluminum going up the fingerboard just in from the top, which is reminiscent of something Martin did on some arch tops back in the day, and that Collings guitars eventually copied on some of their earlier OMs and stuff. But in this model, it's actually made of high-grade fine silver. So this is definitely an upgrade. So they're using the same idea for this very thin trim. What it makes me think of, for people who are Tolkien nerds, they talk about the moon letters at the secret dwarf door that will only reveal itself in the full moon, and it hits, and these very fine spiderwebby lines start to appear, these silver lines that are glowing in the light. That's what I always think about that when I see these very thin, very, very trim little lines going around. A really nice touch over the original Mayer model and back here in this 20th anniversary OM-45, except in this case it is actually made of silver, and it's a looker. It's around the bridge. I mean, the bridge, as you said, the very, very black ebony bridge. It's around the pick guard. That is as close as they can get to a 1930s shape pick guard, which is something the old original Mayers didn't have. They had that, whatever the OM pick guard was at that time, and yeah, just a very cool thing. Also on the top, going all the way back, and this is something that's been on all his models, is he had come up with the idea of continuing, and probably with Dick Boak's help, perhaps. I'm not sure if it was, exclusively something. I think it was, though, actually. I think Dick actually said that Mayer came to them and said, wouldn't it be cool if the sound hole went all the way around? And it does. So you get a full 360 degree rosette that cuts across the bottom of the ebony fingerboard. So that's always been a really cool touch, and takes an enormous amount of work, I can tell you, by the people who do that inlay work to get that to look just right. So that's super cool with the high color abalone.
Are you surprised that for this model they went to a 45 and didn't stop at a 41 or even 28 styling?
Yes and no. I think they knew that the Mayer's models kind of went up from the 28 into the 42s, the stagecoach model, and then the big D45, but he's always been an OM man, and I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if he didn't say to them, love the the D45. I wish it was an OM. Maybe that's how this all came about. I have no idea.
Oh, wow.
But I don't know if you remember him playing at Dick Boak's retirement concert at the State Theater in Easton, Pennsylvania.
I didn't make it to that. I was on a cruise.
Oh, yeah. That's right. That's right. Well, he came through, but was essentially blizzards to get there. Marty Stewart was literally snowed in and couldn't make it, but Mayer got in, and that D45 was literally had just come out at NAMM. And there it was, right there at the beginning of the concert. It was sitting right there. You knew John Mayer was going to be there. There was the big John Mayer D45. And he finally came out for his lengthy set, and he sat down and he played Dick's version of the original OM-28 John Mayer. The entire show. Wow, that D45 sat there glinting in the light right behind him. And, the encore's the whole thing. And he's an OM man. I'm sure he likes his D45, but I could just see the marketing people at Martin's, could just hear their stomachs churning in the back. It's like, when are you going to play the D45? When are you going to play the D45? We want photos. But Dick was pretty tickled that Mayer played Dick's guitars.
I wonder if they didn't have a pickup in it. And I never got to ask Dick that story, but is there any opportunity maybe that guitar was just done but wasn't amplified?
Yeah, but they had plenty of people. They had people playing with mics and stuff. He could have. That's a good question. That didn't occur to me. I prefer my version of the story, but that he's doing it because he wanted to play the old OM. But now he's got an OM in style 45 with the design he really wanted, with this very cool, unique platinum gray top. Certainly makes the back and sides pop. In addition to that, also I noticed too. I'm surprised they didn't sell this thing with at least the pictures that they show online. It's got the typical brass strings, and I was surprised they didn't go with one of their many packs of strings they sell now that are gray stringed. Did yours come with the titanium or the new Kovars?
It's a great question. Let me go and see if I can call this picture back up. I don't know if it's going to be close enough to see. I don't think they're bronze. That's a great question.
Okay, they were gray. Yeah, the ones from the prototype shots that they shot were originally the brass. Because I remember that standing out and saying, why didn't they go with gray strings? And maybe other people said that too. So maybe they did ship them with the more silver colored strings or nickel colored strings. But so you think now? Are you saying you feel that these? Because again, I'm seeing it on my monitor. Your photos on my monitor. So how would you describe that gray tint? How would you describe that to somebody who was saying, well, first of all, do you feel that's accurate, what you shot? You feel that's really accurate to what you see in the room? And then if somebody said, what's it really look like? How do you describe that shading of that top and the hue of it?
I would very, very carefully say it's blue-gray, but back up and backpedal to make people understand. You're not going to see blue, but when I talk about the color gray, I can see a warm gray has red in it, a cold gray has blue in it. If you're not careful with exactly how you're looking at it, depending on the lighting, and I meant to make this comment a minute ago, when you bring this guitar into my store, the first room has just tungsten light. The second room has tungsten light and natural light with a skylight. The studio are fluorescent lights. This guitar looked like three different colors, and not drastically, but it errs on the side of blue. Although when you look at some of Martin's website pictures, if you can find the one where they made the big announcement back on Instagram a long, long time ago, I actually asked Tim Teal in a private message, is that right? Because that doesn't look like the first picture I saw. And he admitted the same thing. The photographer could have been more careful with white balance, but it's a little bit of a blue-gray. As long as nobody listening to this goes and thinks, okay, it's a blue guitar. I don't mean that at all. It just has that kind of overcast to it.
Well, on my monitor, the photos that you just showed me actually have a greenish tint to it. And I know, like I said, this has never been color, corrected in any way. And there's times when I've, seen animation video and stuff like that where clearly it's not accurate, but I don't, it's never bothered because I use it primarily as a computer monitor just to work on. But
maybe with our patrons, I'll put something together before this episode airs and show you the raw photographs, the first attempt at making them color correct, and then what I eventually used. And I should even do a video if I just take the footage I shot and slide around with the white balance and making the picture warmer. This guitar, any guitar is going to look a little bit different, but when you go from a blonde D28 that has the right amount of saturation too, that's important. You can kind of say it's getting a little bit darker, but you're still completely sure that that's a wooden top. This thing, I maybe it's deliberate. There are so many opportunities. If anybody wants to fool somebody and you get a picture from Martin's website or our website, just take the color temperature and bump it a tiny bit one direction or the other, and the results are really, you can be fooled. And I remember liking what it looked like on my video until I saw my arm. And then I thought, well, that can't be right. My arm's not that color. And literally when I make sure that I color correct for skin tone, for some reason, and this might show my ineptitude with video and still photography, I couldn't get a completely perfect picture where I was 100% in love with the skin tone and the guitar's top. So I erred on the side of making the skin tone a little bit pink because I could stand that. I'm not selling my arm, so I didn't care if the video they see doesn't flatter me. But boy, if I would have really made sure that it flattered the presenter, you can definitely make the argument it's really hard to photograph correctly, for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. Also, it's an Engelmann top, and it's a high-grade Engelmann top, which has very small grain. So you can it doesn't look like on whatever the basic resolution is for pictures these days on business websites. I really see almost no grain on the top whatsoever because it's Engelmann. It's always been a very subtle, fine-grained thing. And I could see, I think Dick had actually turned Mayer on to Engelmann spruce to begin with. He was the one that actually recommended trying Engelmann on the first OM, and Mayer really liked it a lot and has always pretty much stuck with Engelmann on his models. And he's been around it so much that maybe he even noticed that same thing, that depending on the toner on the top, you don't see much of a grain, and it almost doesn't look like, it almost looks like sometimes it's got like that Adobe toner they did on the Eric Johnson model, that were really covered up the grain entirely, like put a
Yeah.
covering on it, kind of. And Engelmann can look like that in general, unless you get really close to it, and then you'll see the grain stick out more. But who knows? I never heard, his concept. I've never heard him speak about how he came up with the idea or where it came from. But I can guarantee you it looks really cool on stage with different stage light. But also, like you said, it really pops out the color of the abalone by having that sort of grayscale around it. And also the rosewood. I mean, we're talking about, I'm looking forward. Can we see, do you have some pictures of your back and sides you can share with us?
Absolutely. Mike, the guitar, you mean?
Yeah. God, yes. Yeah. So Guatemalan rosewood. Look at the figuring on that. Wow. Multiple tone and like owl eyes centerpieces. Very cool.
And it's way too late to bring this to the party, but I would actually have really loved to see what this gray top looks like against a very dark rosewood, because this rosewood's almost as light as mahogany in some, some places.
Yeah, and they seem to do this on purpose. This is you talked about that toner, but they see everything I've seen, every OM-45 Mayer that I've seen online all has very light and colorful wood. So these sets were picked, with that aesthetically in mind. Let me just take a look and see if they even mention anything about like that. Of course, I'm a big fan of Guatemalan rosewood. I think, people could say, just like Brazilian out of all kinds of things. They said that about Madagascar rosewood. They've said it about Honduras rosewood, Amazon rosewood, and Cocobolo. And I think they all can share certain qualities with Brazilian rosewood. What I hear out of Guatemalan rosewood is I hear the dark roastness of the darker sounding Brazilian rosewood, but it's colorful. So I think it has more sonic color in it to my ear than Cocobolo, though they're similar. And so in some respects, I think Madagascar rosewood, it sounds more like Brazilian when it comes to those ethereal high tinkly things, but at the top, but it often doesn't have that really expansive bottom end that I hear from a Guatemalan rosewood. And it's one of the reasons I got it on my most recent custom. And I would probably, if I ever, ordered any other Martins, it would probably be out of Guatemalan rosewood would be my choice, since Brazilian is now, just what's the word I'm looking for? Very expensive.
Even for you.
Yeah.
So Spoon, not long ago, we did an episode about the CEO 10, and it was unique because the bracing and the top were European spruce. That's not the case here. We have an Engelmann top, but the bracing is not Engelmann.
Well, yeah, that's not unusual. It is unusual to have Engelmann bracing because it's so soft and flexible. And Engelmann is itself a rather soft sounding wood. To my ear, Engelmann sounds very precise and expressive, but very precise when it's new. But as it ages, then the overtones really come out. And I get this, what I've always called a pastel undertone that is, it always makes me think of watercolors or stuff like that. If you're thinking, using sonic metaphors of Adirondack being like very realistic acrylic painting, where edges are very precise, everything really pops out and all the details. And I think of Sitka as being very big, broad brush strokes of primary colors. And I think of European being kind of a combination of the two, with a little bit of the Engelmann glow behind it, but sort of a backwash glow. But Engelmann has a lot of that, and it's very pretty. Works extremely well for fingerstyle. It works extremely well in small-bodied guitars. And it doesn't have the same kind of headroom, though, that you get from Adirondack or European or Sitka. And so having stronger bracing, stiffer bracing can help make up for that.
Okay. So was I wrong to play a little bit of Pete Townsend on this OM-45 before I shipped it?
Better cut that out.
Let us know in the chat. Have you guys played or seen this guitar in the wild? I'd love to know what you guys think of the OM-45 John Mayer. I know Spoon's seen the prototype. Or no, you saw the other prototype.
No, I did not see the OM. I've never seen the OM-45. I'd love to see yours. I hope we can work that out perhaps before some lucky fella or gal takes it away. But yes, also the bracing is also torrefied. It's torrefied Adirondack spruce. I don't know if we mentioned that.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, it's torrefied Adirondack spruce. It's 1/4-inch bracing, which is what they used on modern OMs. The 1930s OMs had a 5/16-inch cross X brace with 1/4-inch tone bars, but everything was made a lot lighter in those days. And when Martin came out with the OMs, again, starting with a very limited run in '69, and it really wasn't until up into the '70s, and they never even released them as official models until 1990 rather, until 1990. They had 1/4-inch bracing compared to the 5/16-inch bracing that was on basically everything else they made at the time. So got nice 1/4-inch bracing, allows that top to really resonate. And we matched that with the long scale of the OM long string scale with the extra tension you get from that injecting into the small bridge plate. It's a very resonant sound and room filling, and certainly I think my favorite, even though I play short scale guitars now, I always put OM bracing on them to try to get them at least some of that big ball of tone, radiating out of that top. So great stuff.
Well, before we completely bury everybody in all these specs, why don't we take a moment and listen to a sound sample of the Martin OM-45 20th anniversary John Mayer.
Even a low resolution audio, to me, it sounds like it's got its own built-in reverb unit. Very good throb off the bottom E string. Wow, yeah, there's a lot of wow factor in that. Just like in what it looks like. Another great touch too that I want to mention before I forget is the abalone inlays. You can see it clearly in the headstock, but the abalone inlays, they don't call them bound; they're edged in mother of pearl. So you have natural, very, very argent mother of pearl that reflects its own, like rainbow spectrum, very thinly around the colorful abalone. But really nice way to make it stand out from the rosewood and the ebony on the fingerboard and on the headstock. And look at all that. Look at all the edging and stuff on there with the antique white and the silver. Really, really quite beautiful. A little bit of the rosewood sticking out. And then what I really like is those brushed nickel open back tuners. I had those put on my OM-28V when I first got it, and always liked that look. Very cool.
I'm just want to say this has really been a fun episode, but I can't begin to believe that it's the 20th anniversary of John Mayer's collaboration with Martin.
Well, going back, let's just take a look at this because I had some notes here. Now, there's the second Mayer model. I wanted to look that up and I forgot to. And if I remember correctly, it's a It's a Cocobolo Dreadnought, and but I may be getting this mixed up with somebody else's guitar. But then, and of course, then they have the main line, OMJM. That was inspired by the signature model. That remains extremely popular. One of the few nowadays, one of the only, if not the only, regularly available Martins that's got the 1/11/16 inch low profile neck and an Engelmann spruce top. But let me go look and see.
I thought the second one was the Stagecoach.
No. Well, yeah, I mean, the second one technically was the OMJM, and then the Stagecoach came out later. But They did 2 Stagecoach models. But I just had, I definitely had something, because when this model came out, Martin actually has a little retrospective on their website. Well, first of all, there's the OMJM 20th anniversary. That's the one I saw. That came out. It's got white herringbone around the top, but it also does get a very colorful rosette on the body. And then there is the OMJM that we just spoke of. There's the D-45 Mayer, which is Guatemalan. That was the first Guatemalan rosewood, I think. But still with the Engelmann spruce. The 0042 JM Crossroads model that they made as an exclusive that was related to Clapton's Crossroads shows and stuff like that. That is Cocobolo. And but I'm pretty sure that had Sitka spruce on, I think. So those are those recent ones, but and those the Stagecoach models are the ones that 12-fret double O's are actually bigger than what would have been called parlor guitars in those days. But with the slot head and stuff, it's made to evoke those old timey Martins. But so yes, he's had a bunch of collaborations with them. I remember when he showed up at NAMM the year we were there for. So could that be 20 years ago? Was that 20 years ago we were at NAMM?
Oh, I hope not. Wow. No.
Yeah.
Must have been a second
unless he
one,
was showing. Maybe it's the second one. Maybe he was showing up for the second one. But and hanging out at the Martin booth. Yeah, and he's an artist that's gone through a lot. He lost his voice, for a long time and had to pull back. Now he's back. You never know with young artists when they first come out and they're hotshot artists that you never know if they're going to have the longevity as a songwriter, but he has proven that he does. And not to mention as a guitarist, I saw some of the videos he did when he was touring with the Dead, basically taking over the Jerry Garcia role. Just, I always knew he liked to improvise, but some of that stuff is just outstanding electric guitar work. So good for him. I'm happy for Martin, that he likes them and that they are happy to continue their collaborations. And if money was no object, I'd be happy to own every single one of them.
Yeah.
But I'd let you play the OMJM once in a while when you came over. But
that's if money's no object for me.
Yeah, not that you've ever let me play any fancy, pearly guitars or anything, but
I'm glad you brought that up. If you guys are unafraid to go looking on social media for really fun stuff, you owe it to yourself to go to Martin's Instagram. It might even be on their Facebook too. And it's now that I say that, it's surely on their YouTube. Dick Boak's got a series of interviews where he talks about, in the most recent episode, his relationship with John Mayer. And I forget how long the video is, but it does encompass a lot of what we're talking about. So after you look at all of our stuff, go check out Dick Boak's behind the. I'm going to get the title wrong, so I'll fix that in post. But it's worth finding Dick Boak's most recent interview on Martin's socials because it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I didn't even know he did one about Mayer, so I've been too busy the past month. So I will check that out myself. I wish I'd have known that. I would have looked it up for some research before I came in here and did it off the cuff. So we'll see if all our fact checkers call me out on some stuff. But
don't call me out. But fact checkers are going to call me out if we don't do 20 questions. I know that.
20 questions? I'd almost forgotten about 20 questions. So 20 questions is the game where one of us thinks up a Martin guitar that's available for sale today, and the other has 20 questions to guess what model that is. They can guess up to 3 models specifically, but they're part of those 20 questions. And as I recall, neither of us can remember whose turn it is.
You recall correctly. So I am going to ask you to guess what I'm thinking about because I think sort of that's right.
Well, that's too bad because I had a really good one in mind. But okay, we'll do it.
All right. All right. Let me think of a guitar. You hold on to that for next month when you come back to this show again. I'm thinking of a guitar. Okay, I have thought of a Martin guitar. 20 questions on the clock, and go.
Is this guitar made in Nazareth, Pennsylvania?
Yes.
Does this guitar have the OM designation in the name?
No.
Okay, good. Does this guitar have a dreadnought-sized body?
No.
Okay, that's whittling it down. Does this guitar have a full-size traditional dovetail neck joint?
No.
Does this guitar have a short scale neck?
The question is it short scale? It is not.
It's not short scale. Does this guitar have a spruce top?
No.
Is this guitar 0015M?
No.
Is this guitar in the Streetmaster models?
No.
Is this guitar in the 15 series?
Yes.
Is this guitar a 0015 SM?
Yes. Very nice. Now, was I wrong to answer you to say it does not have the OM nomenclature?
That's correct. Yeah, it's a triple O. Yeah. Okay. You got me confused there for a minute, but yes, it's a favorite model. One of the only 12-fret models available these days, and
No, not
all
12-fret.
solid woods.
You asked me 0015M.
No, I said SM.
10 questions.
You're not kidding. You're gone for 10 days. Yes, is this the 0015M?
Yes.
Wow! I can't believe.
Wow, we suck at this show and we miss a couple weeks, huh? Are you sure you said
That's
SM
close.
the first time?
I did say SM.
I got to start listening to you.
Why start now? I had copied something, did a little screen cap from to put on social media. I ran by one of those ads that pops up, and it was an ad where you can get a T-shirt that puts your name in it. So, of course, they figured out who I was somehow and put my name in it. But it said, go ahead and try it your way, and then do it the way Todd told you to do it in the first place.
Can I get that in extra large?
So,
Nice.
I didn't think about giving it as gifts.
Well, that's all I would want to do if I found that,
Well, you have to let me know about this very cool long scale OM with all of that pearl and mother of pearl and fine silver trim and high colored abalone and the platinum gray burst top and the Guatemalan rosewood with the charcoal toner that I guess brings out the, because there's so much, what's the word I'm looking for? Definition between the lights and the midtones and the darks. that wood. It looks like a woven tapestry on those
Oh,
backs
yeah.
and sides. But anyway, you have to
I
let
agree.
me know that if you get any bites on that soon. I would love to maybe somehow find my way to Pennsylvania to play it while you still got it, but just for science.
In the name of research, we'll have to do that for you. But I do hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. Please let us know in the comments if you're watching the YouTube version of this. Have you seen one of these in the wild? Let us know what you think of both the sound and the appearance. If you have not seen one of these, please let us know if you're trying to find one or if you know somebody who has. Again, this is the OM-45 20th anniversary John Mayer signature model. And this has been a lot of fun to talk about. Spoon, I can't really think of another really seriously high definition guitar that we have coming up on our radar anytime soon, having just finished our CEO 10 episode not long ago. And now this one, I'm not entirely sure when we're going to get to see another special guitar of this caliber coming up anytime soon. But as soon as we can, you guys have to know we'll do everything we can to bring it to ourselves and eventually bring it to you. From all of us at Martins and More, thanks for listening.
Hear you later.